Assalamualaikum and a very good evening, Dr. Yus. My name is Farhana and we're from Gucci Group. Together with me today, I have Aiman, Agus and Ashraf to present to you our research title, Understanding the Influence of Consumer Motivation and Perceived Intention to Attend Virtual Events. So without further ado, I'm going to start on our research background. Next slide. So to start off, how do we derive into our title is that we understand in terms of the enforcement of lockdown right now, it has gravely affected most of the industry, especially the MICE industry. Because so what is MICE industry? MICE industry is basically meeting, incentive, conferencing and exhibitions, where right now, because of that lockdown, it actually come to a near standstill and suffers over millions of revenue loss. So these factors affecting the industry is also because of the study showed that closed environment is 18.7 times more likely to transmit the virus than an open air environment. This was based on Ishihara 2020. So hence the purpose of this study is actually to explore the potential business diversification strategy for MICE industry to host a successful virtual events by understanding the consumers' motivating factors and their acceptance in event utilization. So next slide. So for a research problem, we noticed that the demand of virtual event has been on the rise since COVID-19. So and we noticed also that there's a lacking of study in terms of the using the theory of users and gratification theory to actually understand why and how people actually seek out particular media to satisfy their specific needs. So this lack of research kind of push us and motivate us to find out, to understand the behaviors by merging the UGT as well as the TAM based on Park 2009, where he argues that technology acceptance models is a useful theoretical models, especially to understand the individual perception of technology usefulness. So by combining this UGT, users and gratification theory and technology acceptance model can actually provide a platform to understand the specific motivating factors that influences consumers' perceived intention to attend virtual events. So next slide. Hence, because of this research problem, after understanding the whole background, we now dig down into our question. So what are the motivating factors that impact intentions to attend virtual events? And also we have to understand the perceived usefulness, how it actually mediates the relationship between elements of users and gratification theory and the intention to attend virtual events. So next slide. And from this research, we have identified our objectives to examine the motivating factors that impact intentions to attend virtual events, and also to examine the influence of perceived usefulness on the relationship between elements of users and gratification theory and intention to attend virtual events. So I'm going to pass to Ashraf to explain on the literature review.
Thank you, Farhana. So on a brief literature review that we have done, there are three parts here. Number one is on users and gratification theory, which is UGT, technology acceptance model, TAM, and also operational definitions. So on UGT, there are two primary resources of journal articles from CORE and also CORE 2020 and also IFINEDO 2016, whereby both in overall UGT has been used to actually to explain why there are different motifs and also reasons from specific media outlets to satisfy specific needs, which according to IFNIDO, it says that that based on the the study demonstrated, whereby it is also capable of enriching a deeper collaboration and also sense of community among dedicated users. On technology acceptance model, TAM, our primary resources will be by these two, Baby and Kanama 2020 and also Chutur 2009. TAM was first developed by Davis in 1985. Is pretty much popular. And then what we know is that these theories are being further refined, whereby attitude of user were actually influenced by two major beliefs, which is number one, perceived usefulness, and also number two, perceived ease of use. And in terms of operational definition, I will pass to Farhana to further explain.
Okay, thank you, Ashraf. So for operational definition, to measure our variables and its definition, we have referred to many previous literatures. So for the affective and cognitive patterns, we refer to Egin Lee and Task 2018, where it illustrates the process of communication between users on social media or mediums in general. So this is sufficient to explain our study in our research later on. So for the remainder of UNG variables for both personal integrative needs and what do you call that, social integrative needs, as well as diversion needs, it was highlighted by someone in her research, in his research, that personal integrative need as a desire is about an individual to appear credible and to be perceived as high self-esteem personality. And so for social integrative needs, where one individual wanted to be part of a group, as well as diversion needs to measure, how external factors for to pastimes, to escape from the reality and escape from the routines, can be one of the factors that influence a person or an individual to attend an event. So we are referring to all these previous literatures to further measure our studies and variables in our research. So I'm going to pass back to Ashraf to explain further. Thank you.
Thank you, Farhana. So as we have further explained earlier, Doctor, so in terms of our research model, what we intend to study here is a couple of multi-dimensional structure representing 6 different UGT and also 1 TAM. As mentioned, as what you can see here, and UGT would be effective needs, cognitive needs, social integrative needs, personal integrative needs, and also diversion needs. So these are all being categorized as an independent variables, whereby under TAM, technology acceptance model, we intend which would be the dependent variable would be perceived usefulness, which is going to be a mediating factor that could influence the intention to attend the virtual events. So moving on. So on our research methodology, if I may further explain, on in terms of design, we are using quantitative approach, and based upon conducting our study, our survey, we found out that basically perceived usefulness could have a similar finding to our respondent would feel that perceived usefulness is equivalent to intention to attend virtual events. So which why we derived this earlier, where initially we intend to, as I mentioned earlier, the dependent variable of TAM will be should be the mediating effect, and contribute to the result, whether our respondent will intend to attend the virtual events, right? And also in terms of measures, we were using Likert scale, and also mainly are all close-ended questions. And then in terms of sample, we have successfully gathered about 120 respondents, and then there is one screening question, however, and based on the sampling, we have 118 respondents are qualified to be further analyzed in our study, right? And we are also using a snowball sampling method, and which we also requested the help of the respondents to what do you call that, to share with their friends and family to answer our survey questions. In terms of platforms, there are 4 primary platforms that we use. Number one is Facebook. Number two is LinkedIn. Number three is WhatsApp and also Instagram. So these are all primarily social media and also social messaging platforms that all four of us have been utilizing to gather our respondents. If we look at demographic profile, these are the key ones. In terms of gender, 66% of them are all female, whereby the remaining 33% are all male. In terms of age, majority of them are aged between 25 to 34 years old, which is 46% of them. There are two types of nationalities here. 64% are Malaysians, whereby 35% are Indonesians, thanks to Agus. And then in terms of education level, what we gathered here, 54%, 54.2% of them are all undergraduates, and then only about 2.5% are all postgraduate diploma. So I pass the next presentation to Aiman.
Thank you, Ashraf. So, if we move on to the next slide, we'll further talk about the research results. So before we do any statistical analysis, we first have to look into the validity of the measurements that we use. So we had 36 items in our questionnaire and we ran an EFA on all of them. So through 8 iterations, we found that one item was removed because of weak commonalities. This was the cognitive needs fifth item. So as such, there were only 35 items that remain. As you can see from the table on the side there, so there's 6 factor variables right now with CNN5 being removed. In terms of the KMO measure of sampling adequacy, it was noted to be at 0.882, and also the Butler's test of sparsity was noted to be significant at p-value less than 0.001. So based on our EFA, we've noted that currently there's 35 items remaining, and also there's 6 factors right now. So if you move on to the next slide, we'll further explain this. Next slide. Okay. So post EFA, there's 6 constructs right now, which is cognitive needs, perceived usefulness, affective needs, diversion needs, social integrative needs, and personal integrative needs. So as you can see, the intention to attend event was removed, or rather it was combined with perceived usefulness as the commonality, the items were commonalities were quite similar with perceived usefulness. So what does this mean is because, as Ashraf mentioned earlier, our respondents see PU and also intention as about the same. Therefore, it was combined. And in terms of the reliability of each construct, we note that the Cronbach alpha value was between 0.88 to 0.92 being the highest. So all of them was had a Cronbach alpha value that meant that they were reliable constructs to be used. So now we'll move on to the next slide. So as mentioned earlier, now that we have combined perceived usefulness and also intention to an event, so perceived usefulness is now denoted as the new dependent variable. So as such, what we have done is revising the research model that will basically look at the direct influence that the users and gratification dimensions have on the perceived usefulness. So let's move on to the next slide, please. So with that new revised research model, we've conducted a regression analysis to test our hypothesis. So what we note is that the regression model was at R squared 0.612. What this means is that the variables predicted about 61.2% of the variance in the outcome variable, which is the perceived usefulness variable. So this finding was statistically significant at p-value less than 0.05 with an F ratio of 35.26. However, it was noted that 38.8% of the other variables remain unexplained, as noted in the results table below. So now move on to the next slide, please. So further, when we did our regression analysis, we also note that cognitive needs, effective needs, and social integrative needs had significant positive influence on perceived usefulness. So each of them were accounted for the following percentages on the dependent variable, where cognitive needs accounted for 61.9%, effective needs accounted for 21.1%, and also social integrative needs accounted for 17.5% of the influence of the the perceived usefulness variable. And from the analysis also, we note that the diversion needs and personal integrative needs, however, did not influence perceived usefulness in a significant way, as shown in the table below. Now let's move on to the next slide. So as mentioned, this is of from the results previously. So these are the summary of it. So uh, post EFA, we've revised and revisit the model, and now have came up with five hypotheses, which three of them is supported and two is not. So hypothesis one, cognitive needs have a positive direct effect on perceived usefulness, was supported at p-value less than 0.001. And hypothesis two, affective needs have a positive direct effect on perceived usefulness, was also supported as the p-value was denoted at 0.037. And finally, hypothesis four was which basically means social integrative needs have a positive direct effect on perceived usefulness, was also supported at p-value 0.022. The other two hypotheses, H3 and H5, where divergent needs and personal integrative needs, their relationship with perceived usefulness was not supported because the p-value is above 0.005. So with that, I move on to Agus to further explain the findings and discussions.
Okay, thank you, Ayman. So basically, we start our mini research project as the increase of popularity in the virtual event. People are forced to attend an event in the digital approach. So like Fahana mentioned before, the study is aims to validate the audience's gratification based on the UGT, uses and gratification theory, and its influence on intention to attend virtual events through the mediating effect of the perceived usefulness. And like Ashraf mentioned that the perceived usefulness variable can be combined together with intention to attend virtual events based on the EFA results on a very method. And among five gratification variables in the model, only three of them influence the respondents, that are cognitive needs, affective needs, and social integrative needs, which is a score below 0.05 in term of P. And diversion needs and personal integrative needs, which has been hypothesized to positively influence the perceived usefulness, was rejected. So they don't have direct relationship with perceived usefulness. Okay, continue to the next slide. There are two implications from this research. The first one, in the theoretical terms, we analyzed that for the virtual event, the perceived usefulness construct can be combined together with intention to attend virtual events. And in terms of a business or practical approach, managers or practitioners of my industry should focus on the major dimension of UGT theory to achieve greater attendance of their digital events. There are three. The first one, according to the needs of cognitive needs, digital events should enable their audience to increase the knowledge in a certain sectors. And second one, from the affective needs, digital events should provide a joy in their events. And the third one, based on the social integrative needs, audiences' willingness to be part of a group and sensing of belonging is essential to be provided in the digital event. Okay, there are several limitations in this research. The first one, as a time limitation, this study only conducted during COVID-19 and all the period of measurements, MCO or SOP. And this condition can possibly affect the human psychology and also the gratification needs. So for the further research, it is recommended to investigate the human gratification in the normal condition. And the second one, in that opinion, towards new digital advancement should be considered because of new technology will be offer a different features and can provide a different gratification for the attendance. And the third one, this research only considering two countries, Malaysia and Indonesia. Hence, it is advisable to caution in generalizing the result to other settings and for other country or other demographic. The fourth one, the study was only able to have a sample population of 118 because of the limitation of the time, that only 2 weeks. Hence, for the further research, should obtain a greater population for respondents and a longer period of data collection. The last but not least, this research only purely quantitative research. It is recommended for the future studies to adapt mixed mode approach, which is combining qualitative and quantitative. So we have in-depth understanding for each gratification. Okay, that's all for the limitation and recommendation, and also the end of our presentation. Thank you, Doctor. This are from our group for this mini research mini research project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gucci signing out.